Okay, review of fractions. Adding and subtracting to start. Biggest thing is students still forget that you have to have a common denominator before you can add fractions. So looking at the first one here, 2 is not the same as 4, so you cannot add the denominators and the numerators. They're not the same sized pieces. If you think back to elementary, junior high, you talked about, like in this case, maybe a pizza, right? So cut in half, cut in fourths. So a half a pizza is that, and 3/4 is would be, so that's a half a pizza, and then this would be 3/4. So you have to think about representing this as 2/4 plus 3/4 so that you could add them together. You would get 5/4. All right. Can't just say it's going to be 4/6. 4/6 reduces to 2/3, which is even less than 3/4. So you have to think logically about it. So common denominator is 4, so I'm going to keep the 3/4 the same. I need to multiply top and bottom here by 2, so that's going to be 2/4. And then you keep the denominator the same and add the numerator. You can show it as a mixed number, but in high school we kind of get away from that because we end up doing more calculations with it. So as long as it's in lowest terms, you can keep it as 5/4. Next one, subtracting, same deal, you have to have a common denominator. So in this case, a number that 7 and 3 goes into would be, so the least common multiple of 7 and 3 would be 21. If 3 doesn't go into 7 and it doesn't have any common factors, just multiply them together. So that's going to be 21, 21, and so we have to multiply top and bottom here by 3. So 3 there, 3 there, and here by 7. And it's subtraction, and so we keep the denominator the same and subtract the numerator. Reduce it if you can, but you can't. Okay. Next one, 4 does not go into 9. No common factors, so multiply them together. That's 36. So this is going to be something over 36 plus something over 36. You can almost fill in all of it to here, right? The answer is going to be out of 36. So we need to multiply by 9 top and bottom, so that's 27, by 4 top and bottom, so that's 16, and then add those together, so that's 33 and 43. Again, you can show it as a mixed number, but you don't need to. It is in lowest terms, nothing goes into 43. So if you wanted to show it as a mixed number, it would be 1 and 7/36. Okay, so we're doing all of these without a calculator. So next one here, common denominator. So actually I'm just going to erase this. I want to look at, so in these two, 2 goes into 8, so 8's common for those two, but then we also have 3. 3 has nothing in common, so 8 and 3 is 24 for your lowest common denominator. So the lowest common denominator, I'll just label these here. Okay, so that means we're going to have something over 24 minus something over 24 plus something over 24. So I've got to multiply this by 3 top and bottom, this by 12 top and bottom, and this by 8 top and bottom. Okay, and then you keep the denominator the same. 15 minus 12 is 3, plus 16 is 19. And that's it. There's nothing you can reduce. So that's adding and subtracting. Multiplying is really almost the easiest of the operations. So you multiply numerators together and denominators together and then reduce. So in this case, numerators would be 6, denominators 35. Reduce if you can, but you can't in this case. Now, saying that, if you can see any common factors to start between numerators and denominators. You can divide those out. There weren't any here. But for example, here, 3 goes into itself once, into 9 3 times. 2 goes into itself once, into 10 5 times. As long as you're dividing out that common factor between a numerator and a denominator, you can do that within the fraction or diagonally. Then you multiply through. 3 times 1 is 3, 5 times 1 is 5, and it's reduced. If you didn't do that, then that was 9 times 2 is 18, and 10 times 3 is 30. Then you would want to divide top and bottom by 6, and you would get 3/5. And that's totally fine as well, whatever you feel most comfortable with. If you're multiplying by a fraction by an integer or natural number, remember that's like 12 over 1. So here, I can divide the 4 into 12 3 times, and then 3 times 3 is 9, 1 times 1 is 1, and I always reduce that, right? 1 goes into 9 times, so don't leave the 1 in the denominator. And then in the next one, 2's divide out, and that's it. So 1 times 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 3 times 5 is 15. And nothing more that you can do there. Dividing is just one step more than multiplying. You take the reciprocal of this second number, which is the divisor. So this is the divisor. And then multiply the fractions. Maybe in junior high you called it kiss and flip, because the kiss symbol is the multiplication and you flip the divisor. Okay, so here 8, that'll be times 4 over 1. And so remember 8 is like 8 over 1. So 8 times 4 is 32 over 1, which is just 32. Don't even bother putting it over 1. Divisor here is 3/4, so that will be 4/3. Then you can divide out. 3 goes into itself once, into 9 3 times. 2 goes into itself twice, into 10 5 times. So 3 times 2 is 6 over 5, which is 1 1/5 if you wanted to do that. Then dividing, next one, 8 over 9 times 3 over 2. And again, you can divide out. Maybe I'll do it in red here. So 2 goes into 8 4 times, 3 goes into itself once, into 9 3 times. So that ends 4 over 3. Okay, and then order of operations with fractions, same as all the other integers that we were doing. Just got to follow brackets, exponents, division, multiplication, addition, subtraction. Okay, no brackets here, so we've got to do the multiplying first. Okay, and you might want to reduce 3's that way, 2 to 8 4 times, so that's going to be minus 1/4. And now we need a common denominator. Well, 4 does go into 16, so 16 will be your lowest common denominator. And so that means we need to multiply top and bottom by 4. So that'll be 4 over 16. So 5 minus 4 is 1 over 16. Next one, we do have brackets that we need to do first before we do this multiplication. So copy out what's outside. Now in the brackets, it's subtraction, and we need a common denominator. So 3 does go into 6. So 6 is your lowest common denominator. So here we're going to need to multiply by 2, top and bottom. So that's going to be minus 4. And then 3/4 times 5 minus 4 is 1/6. So now we're multiplying. And now I see that 3 goes into 6 twice. So that's going to be 1 over 8. All right, and then just a reminder, rational numbers, they are numbers that can be expressed in fraction form, a over b, where a and b are integers. This means that the set of rationals includes decimals that repeat or terminate. Because remember, So this, for example, 1/3 is 0.3 repeating. So that's a repeating decimal. 3/4 is 0.75. That's a terminating decimal. And they're made up of integers. Now, when we show it in decimal form, nothing changes in terms of order of operations. So it says use the order of operations to evaluate this. So I will let you use a calculator for this, but realize that you can do some of it in your head. So 2.5 plus 1.3, that should be fairly okay to do in your head. That's an 8 and a 3. You're adding the whole numbers because the decimals don't end up being more than that. So that's 3.8. Now 1.2, so then I would get my calculator out. Don't have my calculator out, sorry. Give me a sec here. And then you can multiply using your calculator. Okay, so here, 1.2, and you can just use the multiplication symbol. You can use brackets if you want, but that'll be 4.56. If you have a scientific, same thing. So do this first. If you have a graphing calculator or scientific where you can see the symbols and brackets, then you could do this one all in one step. Likely I'll ask for work to be shown, but you can see I've got all the brackets. It looks just like the question I gave you and gives you the same thing. Okay, so next one, I'm going to do this in steps. So 1.5 times 4.2. So if it's decimals and I asked to show your work, but you're allowed a calculator, then you just show each step. Okay, so that was multiplication. This is division, so I've got to do that. Okay, and that's 17. And now I add those together. That you can probably do in your head, 23.3. Okay, and I think that's it.